It is such a welcome to Cal State Fullerton this afternoon. As you may know, the fall semester started this week, and we had over 36,000 students. As Loretta had said, we are the largest university in the state of California for graduating Hispanic students, and we're the 5th largest in the United States. At Cal State Fullerton, we strive to produce high-quality research, excellent relationships with our community, and an abundance of learning experiences and opportunities. Our university is honored to be the educational destination for many veterans. In this academic year, we've had over 300 veterans enrolled, veterans who served in the current wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, veterans who have served in Vietnam and Korea, and veterans who have served this country in times of peace. In May of this year, we graduated over 165 veterans. We have several of our graduating veterans here today, and I couldn't be more proud. Cal State Fullerton has been committed to serving members of our military, especially as they continue to pursue their educational dreams. We have a very robust veteran student service program at Cal State Fullerton. The program is the recipient of a United States Department of Education grant to provide support for our military veteran students. Veteran Student Services had its start in 2008 in response to what the CSU, the UC created, Troops to College, a partnership between Cal State Universities, California Community Colleges, and the University of California. The initiative encouraged veteran support programs to be made available at California public institutions of higher education. And now I'm very proud to say of the veterans that we, in our President's Scholars Program, we now have 3 veterans. And Joseph, you should know that. The Veterans Student Service Program, led by Joseph Chang, an Army veteran who served in Iraq. When Joseph returned to the university in 2007, following a tour of duty with the Army in Iraq, he looked for fellow veterans. Upon discovering there was no organized student veterans association on campus, he started one as a student intern. The initial group only had 5 members. Today, more than 3 years later, Veteran Student Services have grown considerably with him at the helm. And thank you, Joseph. I would like to thank Congresswoman Loretta Sanchez for her continued commitment to Cal State Fullerton, her constituents, and her nations throughout her service in Congress. Congresswoman Sanchez has had a record of supporting our service members both on and off the battlefield. She was the co-sponsor of post 9/11 GI Bill providing educational benefits to veterans who served after September the 11th. Congresswoman Sanchez, let me invite you up to the podium.
Thank you very much, President Gordon. And again, thank you for, whenever we call, hosting the events that we ask you to host. It's just always such a great campus here in Fullerton. So for those of you who don't know me, I am Congresswoman Loretta Sanchez. I have served for 15 years in the United States House of Representatives, representing the central portion of Orange County. And those entire 15 years, I have been on the Armed Services Committee. So I am what you would call a very senior person on the Armed Services Committee, which means I've gotten to be a chairman of the different subcommittees of things like strategic forces, and actually the type of work I do is nuclear proliferation and non-proliferation and weaponization is facing all kinds of scary things, but most of the time we really do try to provide for our men and women in uniform and for our veterans. So I want to thank you, Dr. Gordon, for acknowledging the work that we have done in this area together, actually. And it's been a big coalition of veterans organizations and the different universities and all of those who understand what real type of leadership qualities can come out of the military. And also how difficult sometimes it is to reintegrate into the ongoing world. And that's one of the reasons we're really thrilled that the post 9/11 or the new GI Bill is a bill that we're very proud of, and in Congress we're working very hard to ensure that we do connect our returning veterans to places of higher education so that they can use that benefit and use it well to go on and serve our nation in other ways. So that's really exciting. You know, we still have, just in American troops alone, at least 130,000 stationed in Iraq and Afghanistan. So supposedly by the end of December we'll be drawing down completely from Iraq. I don't know if that will happen. Today we still don't have what we call a SOFA agreement, or an agreement to extend beyond December in Iraq. So I have a feeling we will bring the rest of the troops home from there. And of course we look forward to in the next year and a half bringing back the troops from Afghanistan. But that means that we bring these people who are just so high energy and ready to go, and we bring them back into a world that is very different, and in some cases has changed quite a bit, just in a deployment or two coming back. And of course, things happen also over there, aside from injuries and deaths and watching some of your friends die in front of you. We also see that deployment after deployment, some of our troops have been 4 or 5 times deployed into the theater. That returning, that means that it's harder to readjust into what is the real world. So we are hoping that between university and counseling and veterans and our hospitals and our clinics and all that, and our families, that we catch this all so that we do the right thing and reintegrate our people into our society. And so we've just recently passed what we call the National Defense Authorization Act, or the Annual Defense Bill, in the Congress, and we've got a whole bunch of things to ensure that we can do that. So I'll continue, at least from this end, to work very hard at doing that. You know, I in particular love veterans, so I'm excited that we have these graduating veterans today. My next job is to introduce your keynote speaker today, and his name is Judge David O. Carter, and he's a very special judge, in my opinion. First of all, he was a Marine. He was a Marine in Vietnam. He is highly decorated for his work, if you will, out there in Vietnam. He came back. When I first initially worked on a congressional campaign, my first campaign ever, not really because I ever thought about it, because I sort of got dragged into it with some friends. I actually worked on the campaign of David Carter to run for the current congressional seat that I now have the honor and responsibility of holding. And he's very special. He was a great Marine. Well, he is, because once a Marine, always a Marine. A fine graduate of UCLA undergrad and law school. And of course, as a district court judge and then as a federal judge, he has had some of the most notorious, if I will, cases come before him, including the Mexican Mafia, the Aryan gang, and others. But he really embodies the Marine Corps values of honor, courage, and commitment, really to the very highest level one can imagine. So it's pretty exciting to see him here today. Usually, I see him crossing at airports as he's going off to Afghanistan or some country in Africa, whereas he is helping us stand up the judiciary in other countries. And if you can imagine that, we see, for example, the change going on in Egypt. And one of the things that we try to do in countries in countries and places like that is that before we ever see these changes coming, we try to ensure that there are institutions, good institutions, that should regimes change, these institutions will uphold some truly universal values, you know, correct redress and ability to have a trial, for example. And so he works a lot on those issues for us. Sometimes I think too much, because we really need you back here in this courthouse to get your work done. And I would be remiss, and I know he doesn't want me to mention it, but I will. I told you that I love veterans. I recently married a veteran, a military member of 22 years, a retired colonel from the Army, and Judge Carter was the officiator at that wedding. So thank you for that, Judge. And if you'd come up, I'm anxious to hear what you have to say.
Well, that was, first of all, that was much too gracious an introduction, so thank you. I have the honor of being invited to be your keynote speaker, but before I say anything, I would especially like to thank you, the members of this band. And if all of you would just join me and the Congresswoman, we are so appreciative of the music we've heard today, and so appreciative of your service as well as partners. Well, it's a beautiful day, and it couldn't be a nicer day. It's about 100+ degrees outside. If we heat that up about 15 or 20 degrees, put about 60 to 80 pounds of stuff on our back and run around the campus, we might have the true flavor of Afghanistan or Pakistan. So welcome home, veterans. The wisest person I ever met was a drill instructor. He had a less than high school education. And he once told me, after questioning my parentage, my heritage, my ethnicity, my values, my worthiness to even be a human being, that I didn't deserve 1 cent of pay that the blessed United States government was giving me each day. He told me, Carter, you don't get paid for what you did today, you get paid for what you're about to do. And I never forgot that. He also told me, amongst many other things, that he could count to 100, therefore I could do 100 push-ups. He told me that those who fight for freedom know that there's a special meaning that the protected will never know. And I'm going to tell you that those who obtain an education have a special opportunity that those who don't will never know. And I'm going to say to you in this room that not only have you demonstrated courage in the past by serving in our military, but you exhibit character by going back and getting an education. And a lot of people think that that's easy if they just go through the process. But for those people who take time out, who go into the military, who then have value choices because we made a little bit of money or spent some time in harm's way, those are value choices that have to be made, and they're tough choices. You see, oftentimes there is a sense of isolationism. We talk about it, but somehow those beer-drinking buddies in high school, not high school, college, sorry, high school, don't quite look the same when you've been on the fast track of life and you've been looking out for the person to the right or the person to the left of you. You've had the responsibility of guarding not only your life, but their lives. I call it the NASCAR circuit. It's tough to come back. Nothing looks quite the same. How can it be when you're given the responsibility at 19 or even into your early 20s of really taking or caring for human life? Nothing matches that. And therefore those value choices have to be made. Are we willing and able not only to serve in these horrendous conditions, but are we willing and able to come back and be the very thing that this country demands of citizen soldiers, good citizens? Now, part of that process, my belief, is having the courage to go back and get an education. Probably the very pivotal point of this country was when the first President George Washington took his sword as commander-in-chief, walked into Congress, and gave it back to Congress, symbolizing that there would always be civilian authority over the military. And because of that humble beginning by a man who probably could have been literally a dictator, we have this blessed government. There's a jurist named Oliver Wendell Holmes. You didn't know him. I met him in the 1880s. Just kidding. But he was a judge on the Supreme Court, and he had served in the Civil War. And I've read all of his opinions. I happen to like them, but even if I didn't, I can't read them. But he said one thing that touched me for the rest of my life, and that was, you'll tell more about yourself as a human being in your first 100 years of an assault in combat than you'll learn about yourself the rest of your life. You know, Oliver got it right. This is a plagiarized and borrowed 2-page memo I'd like to read to you. The majority of the decisions we have to make are no-brainers. Deciding what we're going to have for breakfast is not going to test your character in any way. Judgment may be about your breakfast, but not your character. The true test of character comes when the stakes are high, chips are down, when your gut starts to turn, and when the sweat starts to form on your brow. When you know that the decision you're about to make may not be popular, but it must be made. That's when true character is exposed. The associations you keep, peers you choose, the mentors you seek, the organizations you affiliate with, all help to define your character. But in the end, you'll be judged as an individual, not as part of a group. Those who can reach deep inside themselves and draw upon that inner strength, fortified by strong values, always carry the day against those of lesser character. Those who've had the courage to face up to the ethical challenge in their daily lives will find that the same courage can be drawn upon in the time of great stress and great controversy, and in times of the never-ending battle against good and evil. Now, I'm not intelligent enough or capable enough of writing that. A commandant named Charles Krulak wrote that in the United States Marine Corps. His father was Victor Krulak, who in a morphine-induced state, after spending a year in a hospital, looked up from a hospital bed and saw a 4-star Marine Corps general who had humbly come to the hospital to pin a couple ribbons on a pretty beat-up Marine and group of people in the hospital. So when I talk about character, I'm talking about you. I think you've made that deeply critical choice to go on, and by choosing education, you've now chosen to participate in all facets of our life. Not that the uneducated can't. It's just that now you have a greater opportunity, but with it brings a greater responsibility, believe it or not. Called upon you once to serve in the military, you come back to civilian life with the greatness of your education. We're calling upon you to serve again. And I'll say to you, unless you participate, unless you become involved, you may sometimes be subject to those less qualified, who don't have your life experiences, that demand of command, that experience of really putting it on the line. I'll tell you a very personal story to end my short meeting with you today. It's about my family. It's about my grandfather. Grandpa's dead, but my grandfather had a 4th grade education from the hills of West Virginia. He married my grandmother, who was a president of Mills College. And my grandfather had escaped the coal mines because his older brother Clevo had been cut up by a Hatfield boy in a Hatfield boy feud, but the lanes got out of it, thank God. And the other brother had been involved in a mine cave-in which had taken his leg. So Grandpa at the age of 16 ran away to join the military. My great-grandmother came to get him at 16 and a half, and Grandpa stayed in the home and ran away again at 17 to fight in the Philippines, and then in the Mexican Wars and later in World War I. Well, little known to the Stanford and Mills girls at the time, ladies of very accomplished education, they were entertaining these returning officers from World War I. My literate grandfather, who could neither read or write, had worked himself up to the trenches, fighting every enemy your country could possibly name or believe to exist at the time. And as our family said, they danced through life. Now that's not the end of the story. The end of the story is this. Because of the educational opportunities that we offer, our Congress, our President, our institutions, and most importantly, you Americans, my grandfather went back to Jefferson High School. He had 3 daughters. My mother is the youngest. Her name was Nancy. She's deceased now. My grandfather went back and put himself in Jefferson High School at night and graduated from the same class that my mother did, who was 3rd daughter. Now, where else but America? Where else with the generosity and the opportunity of this great country? So I'll finish by saying to you that we are extraordinarily proud of you. And when a congresswoman asked me to say these few short words, I couldn't wait to come down. And I want to take one moment as I conclude and thank you, Congresswoman, and I'm going to embarrass you a little bit. But I've got to tell you, she has been there for decades. From the very beginning of her beginnings in Congress. And I'm going to give you 2 examples. I called Congresswoman Sanchez at one time, not expecting that she could possibly respond, because we were shipping out a group out of 29 palms heading for Afghanistan. I don't know if you know, but on some segment of our United States military are not United States citizens. They have long-term resident status. They may have been born here, but these kids never became citizens. And I half expected that she was busy because I had heard from her staff that she had a function in Las Vegas. The response I got was an immediate, yes, how do we arrange that I can fly into Palm Springs? Can you get us on the way to 29 Palms? And one of my lasting impressions will be a congressperson who was never too busy to walk the walk and make this happen. And get out there and swear 32 of our kids going to arms on. So I want to thank you personally for your patriotism and for serving on these committees. There's no guarantees in life if I finish my discussion with you today. I'm going to sit around and visit with all of you. I think I met all of you before I began this talk. I'm going to eat most of the cookies, so get to it. Did they ever give you any guarantee in combat? Not one bit. You didn't know if you were coming out. Well, nobody's giving you any guarantee in civilian life. Not one bit. But because of the educational opportunities that this country offers, that no other country makes available, that our citizens believe in, you've got that opportunity to progress through life and lead a good, good life. Now it's up to you because you've got the tools and the training and the ability. So God bless this country. God bless you. God bless the United States of America.